All right, welcome back for our last video of Unit 3. After this, we'll be moving on to Unit 4, our final unit of the year. In our last unit for Unit 3, we are going to look at what we can do to support people in our communities who have cancer. This is also going to serve as our Lesson 12 performance task. So our second performance task of the unit and our final performance task of the unit. And then it will have a discourse assignment tied to it as well. So for this one, the discourse task is not the mastery check because there was only one mastery check, right, for 11. It is tied to this performance task, and I'll explain that when we get there. Okay. In Lesson 12, we're figuring out the social determinants of health or additional factors that affect cancer incidence and mortality. Okay, so social determinants are just things about my social life, right? Where I live. We talk about like socioeconomic status, where I live, how much money I make, different things like that. And then those are factors that will affect cancer incidence to the rate that I get cancer and the rate that I die from that cancer. Okay, by the end of this lesson, we should be able to explain what we can do to support people in our communities who have cancer. Smaller, broken down success criteria. We should know what some of the social determinants that impact health and wellness are, and if we have control over them. Not all of them we will be able to control. How does distance from cancer specialists and changes in health insurance impact health outcomes? Okay, so how far I live from a specialist and my health insurance impact my ability to be treated for this disease. And then how can we construct equitable and effective treatment plans to kind of address these two that we looked up here. Cool. Okay, so we have some research summaries to share with you. And then you can share what you find out about the relationship between where you live and your health and how location impacts cancer care. As you're reading these case studies, and we have a couple, you need to think about what evidence supports the claim that social determinants matter for who gets cancer treatment. Again, social determinants are just those different things about my life outside of like my behaviors and my decisions. So where I live, how much money I make, different things like that. And then what evidence is there that social determinants matter for health equity, and what evidence is there that social determinant is a constraint for cancer treatment or is preventing people from getting the cancer treatments that they need. Okay, so be thinking about these things as you're reading these case studies. All right, we've got 3 case studies. What I would recommend you do is in your group, I would assign one person to distance from specialists, one person to geographic access, one person to insurance disruptions, and then read about that, fill in the table for your selected case study, and then you can come back and share that with your group members, and then you don't have to go through and read all of them. If you guys don't do that, then you are going to have to read all of them because you are responsible for all of this information. But like I said, I would break it up, make it easier rather than harder. Okay, so if we click on the case studies, oh, this one's going to have you make a copy. Okay, so you can see we start with distance from specialists. So whoever in your group gets this one, it's going to talk about a couple of different studies about the distance I live and how that affects my access to healthcare. We then have geographic access, which is again is going to talk about the ability for me to access that cancer treatment option. Like even if it's close, if I've got to cross a mountain or something to get to it, then that's not going to be accessible for me in all cases. The next one is health insurance disruption. So looking at how having or not having health insurance affects cancer treatment and the ability of people to get treated. This one's got a lot of information in that table. And then it gives you the key terms for that table so you can better understand what it's looking at. Okay, so just kind of feel out where in your group what you think will work best for you and your group members, and then split that up so one of you is reading one of each. Again, it's not super long. I mean, 5 pages, and most of it is that table, but still. So if you don't want to work with your group and split it up and you want to read the whole thing, you're welcome to do that. That is not my recommended method, but you're welcome to do that if you'd like to. And then you're going to fill in this table as you go. So how does it matter for who gets cancer? How does distance from health specialists change who gets cancer? How does it matter for health equity or the ability for people to get access equitably to healthcare? And then how is it a constraint for cancer treatment? How does it prevent people from getting the treatment that they need for cancer? And then all three of these, there should be information on all three for all of these case studies. I wouldn't say that any of them should be left blank. All of them should have information for all three columns. Okay, so pause, read those, discuss with your groups, like I said, and then get that table on your handout completed. Okay, so now with that table completed, you're going to stop and discuss these with your group members. And this is how you're going to fill in the rest of your table. So what evidence, if any, supports the claim that this matters for who gets cancer? What suggests that this does not matter for who gets cancer treatment? What evidence is there that this social determinants matters for health equity? So just pause and discuss those with your group members. Again, we're just trying to get this table filled in at this point. Okay, so we're going to start preparing for our interviews, which is the big performance task kind of chunk of this. So we use that for some background information to guide us into the performance task, but the interview that we're designing is the performance task, and then actually interviewing other students in the class with your teacher observing is the discourse task. Okay, so you're going to, on your own, on your own, you're going to answer the questions below based on what we figured out during this unit and check them off with your teacher before moving on to creating your protocol. So you need to answer these on the slide, and I'm not going to read them all to you again here. Okay, again, that's all of these boxes. And then I need you to get those checked off by me or your teacher before you move on to the interview protocols here, these big boxes that are left. Okay, just to make sure that the information that you've got down is comprehensive, meaning that it covers everything it needs to and that it's correct. We don't want you to move on to the performance task side of this with incorrect or non-comprehensive information, because then that's going to lead to you not getting a mastery score of 70% or higher, and then you're just going to have to redo the assignment. So it's just easier to check these off with your teacher right when you get them done before moving on to the next part of the assignment. Okay. Some of the things that you need to look at is, based on what we know about the genetic basis of cancer, what are some things you'd want to know from the patient? So going back through all of the lessons, what are some things that I would need to ask a patient if I was curious about their risk of getting cancer? To help me better understand how to treat them, right? And that's the thing. Think about like the pedigrees, think about family histories, think about like, obviously you can't ask them about their cell cycle. Well, did you have a mistake in your cell cycle? So what are some things that you can ask them that they would actually know the answer to? And a lot of them probably going to pertain to family history and then like risk factors, hopefully, right? Okay. Based on everything we know about the genetic basis of cancer, what are some things that we still need to know, or that we will need to know from the healthcare provider? This is relating more to the cancer treatment side of things. Okay. So think back to those cancer treatments, talking to them about available treatment options, talking to them about the cost of those treatment options, talking to them about the side effects of those treatment options are all some things we probably need to include. Everything we figured out about health equity, what are some things we need to know? That's from this lesson. Based on what you read about different determinants that affect my access to healthcare, what are some questions I need to ask? Maybe like about health insurance, the health insurance that they have, the health insurance that they don't have, where they live, how close they are to specialists, their geographic location, and then other barriers maybe to their ability to access treatment. And then what are some things we need to know from the healthcare provider in regards to, again, that health equity? If the healthcare provider, is able to move locations, if they're able to come to the hospital that's closer to them, if they're able to travel or do other things to help assist that patient so they can get the treatment that they need. Those are just some ideas. You can have questions outside of that, but that's kind of where all of those questions are centering on and the lessons that they're centering on. Okay, so go ahead. You can pause, work with your group members. You and your group members shouldn't have exactly the same answers, but if you need to like bounce ideas off of each other and learn from each other, then that's great. Just don't, copy each other as we're leading into this performance task. That won't be super beneficial to you to just copy them, but use them as the resource that they are to help you. Okay. And then the performance task side of this, what we're really looking for is the interview protocol section of your student activity sheet. For each question, you're going to say what you hope to learn and why you're asking it. When developing your justification for why it's important to ask each question you propose, draw on what you have learned in this unit about genetics. Why would I need to know their family history, right? Why does that matter? Okay, also draw on what you've learned about how both disease and healing from disease are shaped by genetics and the environment. Again, how does where they live, their life decisions, their risks affect their cancer risk? So those are all some things to think about. Okay, so you're going to, excuse me, use the tables in your activity sheet to develop interview protocols that can help you be an effective healthcare navigator for a community member who is navigating the healthcare system to get treatment for a condition with a genetic component. So it doesn't just have to be cancer, any genetic disease this healthcare protocol would be able to address. An interview protocol is a list of questions to ask that person to help better assist them. So for each question, like we just said, you were saying what you hope to learn. Okay, so you can see these are the questions I'm going to ask a community member. So this is the question I would ask, what I hope to learn from asking this question, why it's important to ask / learn this information. Okay, so you'd probably want a question about family history. You'd probably want a question about environmental risk, and you'd probably want a question about access to healthcare. So those are the three kind of domains that I'd have these questions fall into. The kind of any question you have that fall within that domain is a great question. Okay, and then what you want to learn and why it's important to learn that information. Okay, so you'll do one for a community member, and then you're going to do a second set for a healthcare professional. Okay, so the questions that I'm going to ask the healthcare professional are going to be different than the questions I'm going to ask the community member. Okay, they should still fall under the three same domains about health history, risk factors, and then equitable access to healthcare. If you wanted to throw in two equitable access to healthcares and maybe cut out the health history or the family history, or maybe cut out the risk factors, I could see that one for the healthcare professionals. Maybe we don't need to hit all three domains, but we should still have questions on at least two out of those three. And then if you cut one, you should have two on access to healthcare. I do think that that's something that would be easier addressed maybe by a healthcare professional than by a community member. Okay. Some terms to use when you answer the why question. So these are all key terms that came up in the unit that we would like to see included in this interview protocol. Okay, so part of what I'm looking for is that these terms were used in some regard throughout your interview protocol. I wouldn't say that you need to necessarily use all of them, but I would like to see a majority of them used in a correct way. Okay, so we need to include gene, DNA, protein, allele, expression, mutation, sexual production, inherit, meiosis, mitosis, function, and social determinant are all great vocab terms that should probably be represented on the why section. You don't necessarily need to use that in your question, right? Because maybe the community member wouldn't understand some of those terms. I mean, we could explain it to them, but still. But I would definitely like to see these in the why as you're explaining as the scientist why we would ask those questions. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, complete that table. You can rewind the video if you need to, go back, see different things that I said to help you get your table completed. Okay. We already did those. All right, and then the discourse section. So that was your performance task, coming up with the interview protocols, having all of these boxes filled in, the questions you'd ask, what you want to learn, and why it's important. This is going to be the biggest one for me when I'm checking them, the why it's important, because that's where you're really explaining the science to me. So make sure it's a scientific explanation. It's an in-depth explanation. It's not because we need to know. That's not going to get you a great score on this. Okay, so that is probably the most important one for us, for me to check that you are understanding the genetic basis of cancer, the health equity determinants, and the cancer treatment options. Okay, so what you will do is once you have that interview protocol completed and you're ready to interview another student, you will let me know and I will randomly assign you a student to pair up with. And then one of you will ask the other the community questions. Okay, so the questions you'd ask the community member, the other you will ask the health professional questions, and then you're going to explain to the other. So after I ask the question, why it is important to learn that information, why you're asking them that question. Okay, so if it was me talking to another student and I had the community question, I would ask them something about family history. They would answer it, and then I would explain, okay, great, we needed to know that because of this. This helps me in this way. And then we'd move down to the next question. Okay, just make sure that I am in the area as you do that, and that you've let me know that you guys are doing that, that I've assigned you those partners so I can give you your discourse score for this. If you just go ahead and do that and don't let me know and you're like, hey, we did our discourse, then you're just going to have to redo it to get the discourse score, because I have to be there to observe it and obviously give you a score based on those different discourse principles. Okay, so not saying like, things like that, articulating yourself well, eye contact with the other person, all of those great things to help you get a full discourse score. Okay, so pause, let me know, go interview those classmates, and then we have our last progress tracker of the unit, and we're ready to move on to Unit 4. Okay, so in this lesson, we figured out social determinants that impact health and wellness. We figured out if we could control them or not, which ones we can control, which ones we cannot. We figured out how distance from specialists and changes in health insurance impact our health outcomes. And we figured out how we can construct equitable and effective treatment plans for people with different genetic disorders. Okay. And then this helps us figure out how we can help provide equitable care to all. We can take all of that we've learned in this unit and help apply that to make health care accessible to everyone, regardless of all of those different things we looked at today. Okay. So if you have any questions, if you're struggling with that performance task or that discourse task, or you're not sure what's needed of you, go ahead and let me know, and I will do my best to assist you. And then have a great day.